Hello, everyone. I was waiting to see if anyone else was going to hop on, but I guess we will go ahead and start and they can just join in late. Thank you all for joining us tonight. I don't know who is in a cold area like we are, but it is freezing here today, literally freezing. It was 70 on Saturday, and then yesterday it was 38, and today I think the high was 45. So I am not loving life at the moment. But anyway, tonight is our last night of Brian's series, his 4-week series that he was doing. Yes, it's taken us longer than 4 weeks because, of course, we had Halloween. And then he decided to go on vacation, which was very rude of him because we all had to stay at home. But that's okay. He did at least invite us down. So, we're going down one weekend soon to Georgia to visit their beautiful house they have down there. And I mean, if y'all want, I'll invite all of y'all and y'all can go too. And he said that he would make us all filet whatever night we come down. So he's going to have filet and shrimp for all of us. So that's going to be about 50 people. But he supposedly is going to do that. But I can't wait to hear him talk tonight. I'm sad that it's his last night with us because he really is wonderful. I know he isn't used to me giving him compliments, but it is true. So I'm going to turn it over to Brian and let him share with us tonight.
All right, good evening. And I don't know how to follow that up after I said what I said before the meeting, but it was all complimentary. And but yeah, it's couple weeks off there always does everybody good. I hope you all went out trick-or-treating. Got lots and lots and lots of candy as we did. And then of course last week, last week we were still on our way to our house in Georgia. And it's like I was telling Kimberly there before we got on, we left this past Sunday to come home Sunday morning at about 6:30, I think it was. We got on the interstate. It was about 80 degrees Saturday. We actually had the Mustang out with the top down riding around on Saturday. And we left Sunday morning and we got here to 32 degree weather. And it's gotten colder ever since then. So not real happy about that. I did get to, thanks to Karma's husband, Donnie, I got to use my purchase off of him, which we named Frosty, and hauled it over to the wood pile and threw a lot of wood in it to bring over to bring inside and keep the house warm. But it's not my time of the year, but we don't get to choose that. We just have to deal with it. So getting into it there, we've been talking the last couple of weeks about obstacles and opportunities and how to convert them all. And I was asked to speak about failure this week. And I was actually asked to speak about failure 2 weeks ago, and I failed to speak about it until this week. But anyways, failure is very hard to talk about because for the most part, society seems to label failure as a disgrace, lack of success. We're judged too often on our failures more so than we're judged on our successes that we have. And it's just the society that we live in, and unfortunately it's just how things roll. So the definition of failure is lack of success. Failure is the lack of success. And I have a hard time saying that because I can look at this screen here, I can look at myself in the mirror, I can look at anybody I know, and there's nobody out there I know that has not endured failure of some point, some degree of failure. It's necessary in anything we do in life. There are three types of failure. You have preventable. That's when we know, if I run hard as I want to into the wall in front of me, I'm not going to get through that wall, but I still choose to attempt that, right? So preventable failure, when we're foreseeing the controllable circumstances, but we still choose to follow through with that anyways. And we all have those types of failures in our life as well. We all see things and we all know that there's just no way that's going to happen, but we still try it anyways. Then you have your complex failure. And then you have your intelligent failure. How can you be intelligent and fail? Well, it's just part of it. Failure is an essential prerequisite to success, though. Without failure, there's no way we could ever get to success. And that's where society doesn't give us a break at. Society looks at that failure and they magnify our failure, not realizing it's how we actually get to success. It's on that journey, as I like to talk about success, because I don't think we ever arrive at success. I think failure is on that journey to success, and it's in every part of that. It's how we deal with it, is whether or not we continue on that journey or not. Failure is not lack of success, even though that's the definition. But true failure is not getting up from the defeat, right? That's when true failure sets in. Failure is not when we don't succeed at something. Failure is when we choose not to get up and keep going. Failure is very hard for me to deal with personally. And I know I was asked to talk about failure and some failures in my life. And I could sit here and talk all night on just the failures alone and occupy more of our time than I could on my successes. And a lot of that is just how I view myself, my how critical I am of myself. And I think any person that is truly on the journey to success are critical of themselves. They do see their failures. They do magnify those failures, but they only magnify them so they can get past them. Seinfeld. Has any of you all heard of Seinfeld? We all heard of Seinfeld. Seinfeld was made famous by a show about nothing. And it was truly what he actually developed. But when he was a young comedian, his very first time he went up on stage to do stand-up, he froze. He couldn't speak. He couldn't even move. And the audience booed and jeered him. Very easily could have been the end of Seinfeld that we know. He had two choices. He could pack it up, call it quits, or he could keep trying. He went back up on that same stage the following night, had the crowd just laughing. Of course, we all know he went on to become one of the most successful comedians of all time. He didn't allow his failure to define him or defeat him. Instead, he allowed his failure to fuel him and to catapult him into success. There was a young man that once was told, and it's hard for me to say it like this, you ain't going nowhere, son. You ought to go back to work driving a truck. This gentleman was told this after his first performance at the Grand Ole Opry, after which he was promptly fired. Disposing of the keys to the truck, he went on to become the world's biggest star with a legacy that endures. Anybody know who that would be? Anybody have a guess? That was Elvis Presley. And if you've never heard of Elvis Presley, then I'm probably only in this call right now because there's no one no greater that ever sang ever. But yeah, Elvis Presley was told you need, after being on the Grand Ole Opry, you need to go back to just driving a truck, son. Again, here's a young man that could have took the failure, what was deemed by society as a failure, and gave up, but he chose to let it fuel him. One of the most famous failure stories, and I never knew this story until I really got to digging into things. There was a gentleman, I'm not going to name the names or anything like this. There was a gentleman in his early life, he was working on his family's farm. That's where he learned the value of being persistent, right? He learned the value of doing things over and over. He left school after just 2.5 years of school, just 2.5 years of school. And he went to work at a local printer. One day he dropped his hat on accident into one of the machines there and was fired from his job. That was in 1871. He was 14 years old at the time. He went to work for a candy factory and then decided to start his own business, opening his own candy store. That business failed. He left town and headed to New Orleans and then to Chicago. He was unable to find any of the right opportunities. He continued moving around until he settled in New York City, where he started working for Hewler's, which was a candy store / restaurant. After a few years, he quit that job and decided to sell candies on the street in New York City. But guess what? He wasn't successful at that either. He was disheartened by this failure, so he moved back home to work on the farm, the family farm. He began experimenting with chocolate and candy because that's what he had been working in. And he had a large supply of milk because guess what? He was on a dairy farm. That's where he learned how to make delicious chocolate from condensed milk. In 1893, at the age of 36, he established the Lancaster Caramel Company, which eventually sold for $1 million 6 years later. $1 million in 1900. Imagine what that would be today. Giving him the ability to start a new, which I'm not going to name, a new chocolate company. When it opened the doors, he was 43 years old. Success didn't come early for him, nor did it come easy, but he stayed on the track. Anybody have an idea who that would have been? Milton Hershey. Never knew that story. Milton Hershey. We all know Hershey Candy Company. Kathy down there actually put Hershey. Good job, Kathy. Hershey Candy Company was founded by a guy that failed twice in the candy business, was fired for dropping a hat in a machine, and quit school after 2.5 years. We as society would look at somebody like that now and think, in no way in heck that guy's ever going to make it. There's no way he can make it. He is a true failure, right? How many of you fail every day? We all should raise our hand, right? The thing of it is, and you hear, keep doing what you're doing over and over. It'll finally work, right? Used to hear that in sales all the time. Just keep doing it over and over and over. It's finally going to start taking. Maybe you hearing that from your all sales leader with Cincy. Just keep doing it, keep at it, be persistent, stay resilient, right? It'll all pay off in the end. If you're hearing that, or if you're saying that to your sales team, stop. See, failure, sometimes we think to overcome failure, we have to be persistent and we have to keep doing it over and over. But see, failure to get to success, we have to have the failure, but we have to learn from that failure. See, Hershey, Milton Hershey, he kept failing over and over, and he kept going back to it, but he kept making the changes necessary to get to success, right? So it's not about being persistent. It is about being resilient, but it's about learning from that failure to get to the other side, to be able to get around the obstacle and to create that opportunity. Too often we fear failure, right? Fear regret more than we fear failure. Fear regret more than we fear failure. It's hard to not keep fear of failure in the forefront. It's hard not to let that fear of that failure make us not step outside of our box. It's hard to not let that fear of failure control our life. We can't fear the failure as much as we fear the regret. When we allow ourselves to fear the regret, and what I mean by that, and what that means is 10 years from now, if you didn't try something because you were afraid of failing, you're going to regret that, right? So when you start fearing that regret, that fear of knowing I'm going to regret not trying, more so than the fear of that failure, and we allow that to control us, we're more apt to move forward in our journey to success. I was asked to share some of my failures, and I struggle. Not gonna lie, I struggle to share a lot of things with a lot of people. It's just who I am when it comes to my failures. It's not because I think I'm above it. It's not because I don't want people to look at me in a certain way. I really honestly don't care how you view me. I really honestly don't care how people look at my success or my failures. But when I say my failures out loud, I have to hear those failures. And sometimes those failures are hard for me to hear. I have failed many times in my career, my current career. I've not made the right decision on some of my hires. I've not made the right decision on some of my fires as well. The people I have fired. I have not made the best decision to take care of some customers along the way. Then I look back now and I see how I can handle things different, right? But I made decisions. I always made decisions. What I thought was the right thing to do, whether it was a failure or not, I made that decision. I lived with that decision and I thought it through on that decision, right? But if I failed or I looked at it as a failure, I learned from it and I didn't make that mistake again. Might have made a different mistake, but I didn't make the same mistake. Our failure is there, and we fail every day for a reason. And that reason is to learn from those failures. When I was just a sales rep and was in the conversion of becoming a sales manager, it was Super Bowl weekend. It was a Thursday, and my vice president of sales was up to work with me to talk to me about becoming a sales manager. My manager at the time was unfortunately dying of cancer. And so I was having to kind of fill in for him and do my job as well. So he came up to talk to me about taking the position I eventually took. And again, it was Super Bowl weekend. It was a Thursday. And last stop we made was at a pizza shop in Blacksburg, Virginia, called the Beast of Blacksburg. If you've never eaten there, strongly suggest best pizza around. So I got their order, about 120 some cases. maybe 140. I can't remember exactly, but it was between 120, 140 cases, which is a big order. Super Bowl weekend, so you can imagine. And went on about our day. Chris left. That was my VP of sales left. And we have to transmit our orders by 4:00 in the afternoon so that they can be picked and put on their trucks so they can come up the next day for delivery. That evening, and I did it often, I'd wake up 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. Well, I wouldn't wake up at 8. 9 or 10 o'clock at night, I'd wake up and say, oh crap, did I transmit orders? I'd go down, pop up my laptop. Yeah, I transmitted no orders. Just relax, Brian, go back to bed. Well, I woke up that night, same thing. Gosh, I don't remember transmitting Beats to Blacksburg's order. I better go down and check because it is Super Bowl weekend. I know it's a waste of my time, but I'm going to go check. I go down. Sure enough, I hadn't transmitted that order. Super Bowl weekend, a pizza shop with no flour to make their pizza, no pizza sauce, no mozzarella cheese, no boxes, no pepperoni, nothing, because their wonderful sales rep forgot to take care of them. And I sat there in disbelief for about 10, 15 minutes. And it's about 10, 10:30, 11 o'clock, somewhere through there. And I was like, well, I know Oscar's still there because they're open until 11. Let me call Oscar, tell him I really, really messed up. So I called Oscar and I said, Oscar, I really messed up. You don't have an order for tomorrow. I know it's Super Bowl weekend. Tell you what I can do, though. I cannot fit 130, 140 cases in my truck or in my vehicle. I had an Expedition at the time. You only get one order a week, so he orders every Thursday for Friday. So what he gets lasts him all the way through the following Friday. What can I drive to Hickory and get you through the weekend, through Super Bowl, and we'll get you a normal truck on Monday? So I drove 3 hours one way to Hickory, loaded up. Gosh, I think it was 77 cases I got in my Expedition. Hauled it back, had to unload one case at a time. So 3 hours down, 3 hours back, probably an hour to get stuff loaded. Probably 2 hours to get it all unloaded, all by myself to fix the problem. See, I failed that day miserably. I could have let that define me. I could have let it defeat me. I could have not saw the way around the obstacle. I could have allowed that obstacle to defeat me. But I found a way to get around it and a way to make it right for the customer and a way to get myself out of the mess that I got into. But I failed. I tell this story with every new sales rep I hire. I tell this story with anybody in my industry because it can happen at any time. I even share it with prospects when we're out there trying to gain new business. We are going to fail at our jobs. We're going to fail at life. We're going to fail in our marriage. We're going to fail as a parent. We're going to fail as a brother or a sister or a child. We are going to fail. We can choose to allow it to defeat us and define us. Because see, society will make sure they define us by that failure. We can allow to agree with society, or we can figure out a way to overcome it. Let it fuel us. Let it move us on to that journey we're on to get to success. You're going to fall. You're going to fall, and you're going to fall. The question is, are you going to get up every time you fall? And are you going to trip over that same branch in the road every time? Or are you going to learn, hey, there's a branch there. I need to step over it. I need to raise my feet a little bit more. I need to walk around to the left a little bit more. Or are you going to lay on your back and say, woe is me? Or are you going to just keep walking down that same path and tripping over that same thing? The choice is yours. See, society wants you to fail. Society doesn't want you to be successful. And guess what? When you're in the business that you're already in, they want you to fail even more because they don't want you to be successful at something they have the same opportunity to do, that are too lazy to do it. They don't want you to succeed at something that's easier than they think it is. Now, I'm not saying your job's easy, so don't get me wrong, but it's easier than what the people on the outside think it is. Because if you work it right, it's fun, it's enjoyable, it's exciting. They want you to fail at something that helps your family out financially because they're too lazy to do it for their own self. Society is ruthless. Society does not like success. We love reading these stories about Elvis. We love reading these stories about Michael Jordan and Oprah Winfrey and Colonel Sanders and Walt Disney. We love those feel-good stories, but we don't want it to be our neighbor, right? We don't want it to be somebody we know. We want it to be that complete stranger because that's okay. See, society is geared to make sure your neighbor fails, but you're successful. That's the society we live in. That's the world that's out there. It's up to us to change that. It starts within ourselves, right? Because see, if we can make sure that failure is not defining us and defeating us, it's easier for us to get out with our hand reaching down to pick that person that just tripped up on that stick in the road. When you start allowing your failures to motivate you and fuel you, it's easier to view other people's failures and help them learn how to make it and help them motivate them as well. The hardest thing to do is get back up after you fall. It's hard. It's miserable. I've been out of the weight room now for realistically 12 months since I've really been serious in the weight room. And I have failed miserably at every attempt I've had to get back into it. Bought a really nice home gym. Kathy and I did about 3 or 4 weeks ago. Sat in my enclosed trailer for 3 or 4 weeks. I needed that trailer to go to Georgia last week because I was going to haul my motorcycle down for the week. So I had to unload the trailer. Well, to put it in the basement, I had to clean out the basement. So all this had to take place. So 3 weeks I kept pushing this off because it just didn't, why? So to make a long story short, the basement's clean. The weight machine sitting down there. I'm waiting on my floor mats to come in so I can set them down, set the weight machine up so I can get back into working out. For so long, I allowed my failure of not walking into that weight room be my excuse. And I laid on that ground, not getting up. I laid there constantly, focused on why I couldn't go to the gym, focused on why I couldn't lift, focused on why it wasn't important to me because it was so hard to get up. It was so hard to look in the mirror and admit that I was failing and I was the reason I was failing. When you fail, how often do you look at the person in the mirror and accept and hold yourself accountable for that failure? Or do you blame everybody else around you? Too often we blame everybody else around us because we're too scared to admit our own faults, our own reasons of why we failed. It's easier to blame somebody else. But when you push through it, when you identify, when you look at yourself in the mirror and you hold yourself accountable for that failure, that first step going the right direction, so hard. The second step feels so much better. That third step is easier. That fourth step is a breeze. Now you're on that journey back to success. It's that easy. It's that quick. But it starts with holding yourself accountable and not blaming others for your failure. Because see, the others put the twig in the road. Others try to trip us and push us down, but it's still us that fail. It's not them that fail. See, when your customers or your friends or your family are not wanting you to be successful in Cincy, it's easy to blame them for your success. It's easy to blame them for your laziness, for your unwillingness, for your lack of dedication, instead of blaming yourself. Failure is yours. Failure does not belong to nobody else. Failure is not caused by anybody else. Failure is yours and yours alone. Failure is yours to own, to hold yourself accountable for it, and yours to overcome. We have to admit our weaknesses. We have to hold ourselves accountable to get to that other side. It's harder to get past regret than it is to get past failure. Going back to the statement, fear regret more than you fear failure. It's harder to get over regret than it is to get over failure. Same thing goes in dating. If you wanted to go out with somebody, are you too scared to ask them out? Or do you fear that regret that what if I would have asked them out? It's easy. Fear the regret more than you fear the failure, and you will find your success. Failure is very hard to talk about, but it's something we have to talk about. Failure is something we don't like to admit that happens to us, but it's something we have to own. Failure is hard to get back up and show your face again when others saw you fail, but it's something we have to do. Failure is necessary in the steps to success. See, if you don't fail, you never tried. If you never try, you'll never get there. If you never get there, you'll regret it. It's a full circle. No matter how you look at it, it's all in that circle. Failure can be our own worst enemy, but failure doesn't have to be. Failure can be the best medicine, the best wake-up call, the best fuel, the best motivation tool we ever have. Failure is inevitable. Embrace it, own it, hold yourself accountable for it, and find a way to get past it. Allow yourself to fail. Allow yourself to fall down. Allow yourself to put yourself through the process, and you will get to that other side. Nobody that's out there that's been successful did not fail. Steve Jobs failed. Oprah Winfrey failed. Colonel Sanders failed miserably. Walt Disney, I think it was 7 bankruptcies, if I'm not mistaken, before he became successful. And I love me some Hershey candy. Absolutely love me some Hershey candy. And to know that he was a failure, that he failed miserably, that he had 2.5 years of education and built the empire he built, sold a candy company for $1 million in 1900. I'd love to know what that equates to in today's economy. Would love to know that. Embrace your failures. Love yourself as you're failing, and allow it to fuel you to success, and you'll be fine. Don't be fearful of failing, because you'll never get anywhere. Find a way to make it happen. Find a way to get past it. Ask for that help. Don't be ashamed, but own it, and don't blame anybody. Does anybody have any questions or any comments? Anything they want to add? It's quite a bunch tonight.
Yes, they're very quiet. I think this time change is catching up with everyone. I know it is me. So.
Well, I was asleep on the couch about an hour ago, so I know all too well.
You and Donnie must be on the same schedule, because he was asleep on the couch an hour ago.
Well, I don't know how he can sleep as much as you run your mouth, but
you talk way more than I do. Way more.
well, not as much as that one guy.
Oh my Lord. Yeah. I'm glad you got to meet him.
Yeah.
And this is totally off subject, but when you said what you named the truck, it's so funny because it's totally different than what Donnie had named the truck.
Well, I tried to name it Golden Turd and got shut down.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I guess he told you it was called the Golden Viper.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And that it's been named that since we've owned it. Like, everyone calls it the Golden Viper. And what was so funny is we would even have people that we don't really know, but somehow they knew that that was the name of the truck. And it's people that we'd push snow for. And they would say, "Oh, you're all in the Golden Viper tonight." And I'm like, "Oh, Lord." So, yeah.
We called it, Kathy chose the name and it fits. She called it Frosty. And it's going to do the job well. It was a long ride from Christiansburg to Bluefield. The snow pushed us to the wind, and was told I was going 80 mile an hour. So I know the truck will run, but
yeah, it'll run.
Yeah, but it's it's been great speaking with you all, and like I said in night one, a lot of times when I do these things, I'm learning myself. And the old analogy, when you point your finger at somebody, you've got 3 fingers pointing back at you, and it's so true when I do these things. I really truly learn because I dive in, and this tonight's was hard for me, very, very hard, just because when you start looking at your own failures and you start looking at some of them that you didn't really follow through on getting yourself up through those. And, whether it be through jobs or through life, or, we have them all. And, I challenge each of you to always take time to self-reflect, the good and the bad and the ugly. Because you need it. You truly, 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 truly need it. And I need to do it more often.
I think what some people forget is that that's what makes you who you are. You shouldn't be ashamed of your failures. You shouldn't be ashamed of, anything that you've tried to do and you failed at, because that's what makes you who you are today. No one starts out doing anything and does it perfect. I don't care if, I hear people say all the time, "Well, she's a natural at this." Yes, you might be a natural at it, but you still fail. No one is perfect. I mean, so yeah, never be ashamed of your failures, because that is definitely what makes you what you are.
it rounds you out. You take the very best musician, the very, very, very best musician. Then yeah, they were gifted, and God bless them with the ability, the ear, the ability, to play whatever musical instrument it was. But they didn't just pick it up and start playing great songs, right?
Exactly.
Way, we have to fail to get there. But it's so hard to get discouraged by our failures. It really is.
And it's hard. I think one of the reasons why we get discouraged at our failures so much is because we are too busy comparing ourselves to everyone else. And so that makes our failures feel even more like they're a failure when they're really not, because the person that you're comparing yourself to has failed probably more times than you have.
Exactly.
A perfect example is I had a new girl, and she screwed up a whole order, and she was all upset about it, and she was ready to quit because she said she was a failure. And I was like, everyone makes mistakes. And she was like, well, you don't. And I was like, I hate to tell you, I remember when I first started, I'd only been a consultant for 2 months, and I completely forgot to do a whole order. And it was during the month that we had 10% off. It was that January. So I'd only been a consultant a little less than 2 months, and well, right at 2 months. And I forgot to put in that whole order. And I was like, what am I going to do? I have like $500 in orders, and I forgot to even put them in. Half of the stuff is not available anymore because it was transition month, and the stuff isn't 10% off anymore. And I really just thought I should throw in the towel, but I didn't. I figured out a way to make it work. And that's what you do. Like, I'm no different than anyone else. I make mistakes just like, Kim does, just like Cindy does, just like Kelsey does. Everyone, we all make mistakes. If we didn't, then we wouldn't be human, for one.
Exactly. And, that was one of the things, I struggled with in the beginning when I was in the bodybuilding, but I've truly, truly learned, and it really shaped me in my sales profession as well, was I would go in, and of course, I didn't start lifting until I was 41, 42 years old, somewhere through there. And the guys in the gym were 22, 23, 24, 25, just full of testosterone and just, young and healthy and eating and so I'm comparing myself to them. Hey, I'm doing the same amount of curls and the same weight, and his arm looks like my leg, and my arm looks like his pinky, and you're constantly comparing yourself to the other people instead of that person in the mirror, because at the end of the day, that's who you're battling, is that person in the mirror. And you're exactly right, Carmen. It's so easy to think that, wow, look at that person. I really wish I was that person, because look how successful they are and how great they are, and they're not making the mistakes. But we don't see where they started at. We don't see the time they put into it to get where they're at and the mistakes they made along the way. We see where they're at now. Now, that person, if they're really true to form and they're really on the journey to success, they still see their failures every day.
Yep.
And to me, that's where we all need to be. As successful as we are, and Carmen, I'm going to brag on you a minute, but as successful as you are in this business, you still have to look at your mistakes that you make every day and build from those and really have that self-awareness. And I think that's a side that we don't share as often as we should.
I agree. Well, we really want to thank you for doing this last series for us for the last 4 weeks, or 6 weeks, I guess, really. But anyway, and as soon as Kathy will let you do it again, because I know she's got all kinds of honeydew list stuff for you to do. But maybe after the holidays, after the first of the year, we'd love to have you back.
Yeah, I would love to do another one after the first of the year there, and we get through the holidays, and yeah, my honeydew list just grows and grows and grows and grows. And
but wait till I send you mine, because my guest room down there, I have a few requests, so I'll make sure I send it to you.
Well, I tell you, it's so funny, and I don't know where she's at. She's roaming around the house here somewhere, but we're getting our kitchen redone down there. And we're got a guy that's there while we're not down there that's working on it and stuff. But we got down there. We left last Monday so we could wake up Tuesday there, and we had 2 boys with us. And so Tuesday through Saturday, we were well, there was one day we didn't, but we were at a Lowe's or a Home Depot or the local hardware store somewhere every day, running, getting this and getting that and buying this and doing this. And we talk about it all the time. It just, we never just sit and relax.
Yeah.
We stay busy because it has to be done. So yeah, my honey-do list is quite lengthy, but I can fit some Monday nights in after the holidays, and might even do.
We'll definitely get you booked. Yeah,
For
when it
sure.
gets a little warmer.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again for doing this. We really appreciate it, Brian. Tell Kathy thank her for letting us borrow you, which I'm sure that it was a nice break for her. So she didn't have
I'm
to hear
sure
you
she
talk for a while.
enjoys the peace and quiet. from
Yes,
me,
she
no
does.
doubt.
Of course. But thank you again. And thanks, ladies, for joining us. And y'all have a great rest of your Monday.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you all. Good night. Bye.
Bye.